Dust swirled in the heat of the midday sun as a small crowd gathered outside Brenner's trading post, where the sheriff had sanctioned a bride auction, the town's disgraceful solution for dealing with abandoned women. Evelyn Moore, once promised to a well-off rancher from Denver, stood on the rough-hewn platform in a tattered dress, her shoulders stiff with pride. Her fiancé had taken one look at her after her long journey, her sunburnt skin, the bruises from a recent stagecoach robbery, and called off the engagement on the spot. "This here girl's strong, able-bodied," barked the auctioneer. "Good cook, I hear. Sold as is." The men of Redstone Ridge either averted their eyes or chuckled behind their hands. Evelyn felt the heat of shame and sunburn sting her cheeks. Then a voice cut through the crowd, low and sure. "I'll take her. $2 and my saddle blanket." Heads turned. A tall man in a dust-covered hat stepped forward. His shirt clung to the lines of a lean body hardened by labor and sun. Colt Maddox, a former outlaw turned cattleman, placed his blanket and 2 silver coins into the auctioneer's hand. "That's barely legal," the man grumbled, but the sheriff shrugged. "Ain't no one else bidding." Colt extended a hand. Evelyn hesitated, her pride rearing, but then her cracked lips quivered. "Better to walk beside someone with honor," she whispered to herself, "than die alone in a town that mocks you." She took his hand. Chapter 2, The Rancher Ghosts. Colt's homestead sat an hour's ride from town, half buried in dust and the memories of old sins. The buildings were rough but clean, the well still running. He spoke little, offering her clean clothes, a room in the loft, and a hot stew. "I didn't buy you," Colt finally said that night. "I bought your chance to stand again." Evelyn eyed him warily. "Why would a man like you care what happens to a woman like me?" Colt leaned back, eyes shadowed under his brim. "Because I know what it feels like to be thrown away. And because my ma raised me better than to let good folks rot in filth." Something in her chest cracked open, but she buried it. Life had taught her not to trust kindness. Not anymore. Still, she stayed. She cooked. She cleaned. She even patched up the old chicken coop. Her spirit, though bruised, refused to break. Colt noticed. One day, he handed her a shovel. "Help me dig a new irrigation ditch. Water's been running thin. Could use someone with grit." She gripped the shovel, her hands blistered but steady. "I'll show you grit." Chapter 3, Of Cattle and Courage. Colt's cattle business was failing. The drought had strangled the land, and outlaws still prowled the edges of Redstone Ridge. "I can help you turn it around," Evelyn told him one morning, spreading out a notebook. "I worked numbers back in Illinois. My father ran a dry goods store. If we fence in the north pasture and trade with the mining camp down south." Colt blinked. "You know how to run figures." She nodded, "and charm miners into paying double for beef." His slow grin stunned her. It was the first time she saw the man beneath the dust. "Well, Miss Evelyn Moore, looks like I didn't rescue a wife. I rescued a business partner." She smiled back. For the first time in weeks, her heart fluttered with something that wasn't fair. Together, they worked. They fenced, sold, bartered, and worked their hands to blood. Nights were quiet, but laced with warmth, shared glances, passing touches, laughed over burned biscuits. But trouble rode on the wind. Chapter 4, The Return of Ash Braxton. Ash Braxton, Colt's former gang leader, rode into Redstone Ridge with a posse of desperados, demanding tribute from every ranch within 50 miles. He hadn't forgotten Colt's betrayal years ago, walking away from outlaw life after a failed bank job that left 2 men dead. "You owe me, Maddox," Ash sneered when they met outside the saloon. "One more ride." Colt stood tall. "Ain't that man no more." "Then you'll lose everything." Colt didn't flinch. "I'd rather lose land than soul." Ash turned his glare toward Evelyn, who had just walked up with a basket of eggs. Pretty thing. You always did like your women proud. Colt stepped between them. You so much as breathe near her again, you'll regret ever crawling out of hell. Ash spat in the date. We'll be back in 3 days. Decide then. Chapter 5. A Plan of Steel and Tase. That night, Evelyn sat on the porch beside Colt, her hands shaking. They'll kill you, she whispered. Maybe, Colt said, but they won't take this land. We could run. No, he said. You don't run from evil. You outlast it. Evelyn stood, heart thudding. Then I'll fight with you. He stared. You sure? She nodded. I've lost everything once. I won't do it again. They fortified the ranch, rigged fences with broken glass, set traps near the barn, and rode into town for help. Most turned away, but one old miner, Hank Collins, offered rifles and powder. You two remind me of what this land used to stand for, he said, placing a revolver into Evelyn's hands. The sun rose red 3 days later. Chapter 6. Redemption in Gunpowder. Ash's gang arrived with pistols blazing, but Colt and Evelyn were ready. Shots rang through the dusty air. Evelyn fired from the loft, steady as stone, while Colt held the front line with brutal precision. One outlaw fell, then another. The horses scattered. Evelyn ducked a bullet, returned fire, and clipped one of Ash's men in the shoulder. Finally, Ash rode straight for the porch. Colt met him there. The two men clashed in brutal silence. Fists, boots, fury. Ash reached for his knife, but Evelyn grabbed the branding iron from the fire pit and slammed it against his side. He howled and collapsed. The law arrived too late, but just in time to arrest the wounded survivors. Colt turned to Evelyn, covered in ash and sweat, and took her hands. You saved me. She shook her head. We saved each other. Chapter 7. A Love Worth Gold. Months passed. The ranch, now dubbed Evelyn's Rise, flourished. Miners paid top dollar for beef. Evelyn oversaw every deal, her reputation spreading across counties. Colt expanded the herds. They built a new house, planted wildflowers in the front yard. One evening, Colt led her to the old corral, now fixed up and strung with lanterns. I don't got much, he said, but I got a ring carved from a silver dollar and a promise. Evelyn's eyes welled up. I ain't worth much, he went on, but I'd spend my whole life trying to make you the richest woman in the West. Not in gold. In love, respect, and land that's truly yours. She laughed through tears. You already have. He slipped the ring onto her finger. They kissed under the stars. Epilogue. The Legend of Redstone Ridge. Years later, folks still talk about a woman who was sold for $2 in a saddle blanket, and who rose to become the wealthiest, most respected rancher in Redstone Ridge. They whispered about the outlaw-turned-cowboy who stood by her side, and the gunfight that changed everything. But Evelyn Maddox, once Evelyn Moore, would smile when she heard those stories, because in a land of dust and danger, she had found her treasure, and he had a crooked smile, callous hands, and a heart full of gold.